Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Jess Hilarious, Charlamagne the guy. We are the Breakfast Club. Jess is on maternity leave, so Lara is filling in. And we got a special guest in the building. We have Lara Trump. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you.
How you feeling this morning?
I'm feeling great. How are you guys?
Blessed, black, and highly favored. Good morning.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, now, you're the co-chair of the Republican National Committee.
Yes. What does that mean exactly?
What is that?
Well, there's a chairman of the RNC. His name is Michael Whatley. And as co-chair, I work alongside of him. And, you know, we're basically in charge of the Republican Party at this point. And I've been in this position since March. It's been a wild ride. This is probably one of the craziest times in politics anyone can remember. And so I'm honored to do it.
Your father-in-law has a lot to do with that.
Well, you know, actually the RNC committee members have to vote you into this position. Now, I did get a call from him back in January one night, and he said, I think you should run for this position. And to be honest, I said, I have 2 young kids. My kids are 5 and 7 now. I have a lot of personal endeavors that, you know, I have underway as well. I said, I don't know if this is the job for me right now, knowing how big this election was going to be, knowing what laid ahead of me. But he convinced me to run for it, and then the committee members at the RNC voted me into this position, and I'm honored to do it.
Have you been a lifelong Republican? Or?
You know, I would say yes. I've always voted Republican, but, you know, politics were never a big thing discussed in my household when I was growing up. I grew up in southeastern North Carolina, and, you know, I think that naturally I gravitated towards more conservative values, but we never really discussed it. But yeah, I've always voted Republican.
Well, let's go back a little bit. Let's find out who Lara Trump is. So
okay.
You're married to Trump's son, Eric.
Yes.
Where did you guys meet? And, you know, explain that, break that down so people know your history and where you came from and how you got into politics.
Yeah,
politics wasn't your thing at first.
No, well, it wasn't anyone's thing with the last name Trump, if we're all honest, for a long time. I grew up in southeastern North Carolina, like I said, and I moved here. I moved to New York in 2007. I actually moved here to go to culinary school. Okay. Of all things.
So you're a chef. You can chef it up.
Yeah. Well, now don't ask my husband because he gives me a hard time about this. I'm technically a pastry chef. I went to the French culinary.
Oh, French culinary.
Yeah.
So you can only cook the pastries, not the other stuff.
Well, I can.
Like, he won't starve, but that's not really your thing.
Well, now he gives me a hard time because I used to make him like ice cream cakes. I make the ice cream from scratch, the whole thing from scratch. And then he would go on like a keto diet. And on keto, you can't have sugar. Right. So all of it would get freezer burn in the freezer. So I'm like, well, why am I going to go out of my way to make these cakes for you if we're not eating them? Anyway, he'll argue that it was a bait and switch.
You were trying to make him fat.
I pulled him in.
Yeah, you trying to make him fat.
And then I stopped making him these cakes.
So you're not a chef. You're more of like a baker.
Well, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha,
because they're different. Different, actually. If you look at pastries and pastry chefs, it is based on a lot of chemistry versus a regular chef who's just doing like savory dishes. There's a lot of, you can just like toss a little of this in, toss a little of that in. If you do that in baking, your cake isn't going to rise the right amount or whatever it is. So a little more technical. But yeah, I moved to New York to go to culinary school. And Eric and I met out one night in Manhattan. I mean, it's like, when does this happen? This is back in the day. I had a razor phone. I won't tell you how long ago that was. But no, I certainly never had any inclination when I moved to New York that I would ever have the last name Trump. I am not a Trump by birth, and I certainly probably did not have the same upbringing as my husband. I think I probably grew up like a lot of people in America.
That's kind of good because you can get out whenever you want.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But it's great. And I moved here. I met Eric out one night. I had no idea that a guy named Eric Trump even existed, but you guys probably saw when I walked in, I'm a tall drink of water. And when I have heels on, I'm like 6'2".
Oh, so you walked in pumping.
Yeah.
And he was like, who that?
Yeah, well, I saw across the room. I was like, well, who's that guy who's taller than I am with my heels on? I said, this could work out. And little did I know, here we are, gosh, 16 years later.
So all you look for is height? That's all it takes.
That's what drew me in, Charlamagne. Okay. But it takes a little more than that. And to be honest with you, when I found out who he was, I said, well, I think I'll go out on a date with this guy, and I'll probably just have a story to tell, because you have in your mind what someone with the last name Trump would be like.
So he's gonna be an a-hole.
Right. I mean, to be honest with you. And we went out to dinner, and we did not order food for 4 hours because we had such a good conversation going. He was so down to earth. He was, I mean, honestly, I hate to use the word normal, but he was normal and like anyone else I'd ever met. And I was so impressed with all the things he said to me, and our conversation was great. And that's what really drew me in, and that's what it took for me.
Hold on, I got one question. Now,
You ate
said
before you went.
I should
to.
have. I did not. No, we had some drinks, but we didn't order food. And I felt bad, not to cut you off, Charlamagne. I felt bad because I've been a waitress for a long time, and I know
They hate that.
They hate that. I said, I hope we leave her a good tip. So
Well, he
whoever
should
did
have
it-
left a
Eric
good tip
Trump,
there,
I mean-
I
but
hope
yeah.
Eric Trump left her a good tip. I'll have to ask him about that.
Well, why give the asshole the chance? Like, if you said to yourself, his last name is Trump, I thought he was an asshole, why
Well,
would that
we
make you
could-
want to go on a date with him?
I mean, I think my initial knee jerk was, oh, this guy's gonna be like, I'm not gonna like him. But we communicated. We
Gotcha.
talked on the phone, and he seemed relatively okay. So I said, all right, let me go see what this is about. And yeah,
So when did
And
it
you
switch?
worked at Inside Edition too, right?
I sure did.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a background in a communication media degree from NC State. Shout out to the Wolfpack. Not a great football season for us, but I digress. And yeah, so I was a producer with Inside Edition for 5 years until, of course, the famous escalator ride in Trump Tower. And now my life is politics.
How at working at Inside Edition as a producer did you not know who he was?
This was before I worked there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I worked this is when I was in culinary school.
Got you. What
And
year was that?
This was 2008.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when did it switch to politics? When did, because it was a big happy entertainment family, and then politics hit. And
Yeah.
when you started hearing the politics talk, did you believe it? Did you say, no way, this cannot possibly happen? Walk us through that, because I don't think anybody ever thought that Donald Trump would make it to president. It just didn't seem like, because he wasn't a quote unquote politician.
Yeah. Well, he was friends with everybody. I mean, I think if you look back at Donald Trump's history, he last night we were at the Al Smith dinner, and he was right there next to Chuck Schumer, and he said to Chuck Schumer, who's obviously a Democrat senator, he said, I gave Chuck his first check ever when he was running for assemblyman or something. So yeah,
That's why Chuck was laughing so hard. Remember we asked why Chuck was laughing so hard? Chuck
I
was
don't-
laughing, boy.
I don't be liking the optics of that. Only reason I say I don't like the optics of that is because when you hear people like Chuck Schumer say things like Trump is a threat to democracy, but then you're sitting next to him yucking it up. Why would you be yucking it up with somebody who you consider a threat to democracy?
Well, you have to ask yourself that question, don't you? Maybe it's all scare tactics. Maybe it's a lot of fear mongering. Charlamagne. What I can tell you is I know Donald Trump. I have known him for 16 years, and Chuck Schumer's known him a lot longer than I have. And I think he knows full well he's not a threat to democracy. And you don't even have to take my word for it. Look at what he did when he was in the White House. There was never any threat to democracy when he was in the White House.
Well, there was
and
an
I would
attempted
actually,
coup of the country.
well, that you can argue that a lot of different ways. Peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard is not an attempted coup. What was a coup was when they replaced Joe Biden with Kamala Harris, who was not elected by anyone to run for president. There are 14 million people who voted for Joe Biden to be the nominee for the Democrat Party. And if you want to talk about a real threat to democracy, I would argue that.
That wasn't a
But
coup.
Laura,
though.
did anyone die when that happened though?
Well, no, not even that.
Well,
she was vice president. So
The only person who died was a woman who was there actually very supportive of Donald Trump on that
But
day.
that's still a life loss. I'm just saying
No,
the
it's terrible.
the
Look,
comparison is a bit
We could go down the line
drastic.
of people dying in a lot of different circumstances, and I would argue that list could get very long for the Democrats as well. But
But she was vice president. She was on the ballot. People did vote for her. The delegates did vote for her at the DNC.
But would you, as I'm going to assume a Democrat voter for a long time, unaffiliated voter,
Yes.
if you were a Democrat, maybe a Democrat here, would you guys, if you had the option to vote for someone other than Joe Biden to be the representative for you on the Democrat ticket, have chosen Kamala Harris to be that person?
Yes.
I would have chosen Kamala Harris.
Out of really interesting.
Yes. I mean, I was a person that was calling for Joe Biden to step down for a very long time. And I think that there's, when Joe Biden made a statement last year, he said there's about 50 of us that could beat Donald Trump. I was like, well, line them all up then. And I definitely had her as one of the
them.
people.
Even though she dropped out whenever she ram the first time before her home state voted, before Iowa, and she was polling solo, you still would have given her the shot. And I mean, if you think back too at Kamala Harris, when Joe Biden, before he got pushed out of this position, before he really kind of took it up a notch with this campaign, people were saying Kamala Harris is the insurance policy for Joe Biden because she really is not doing a great job as vice president. I mean, she got, her.
Well, I'm a person who voted. I voted for that ticket because of her.
Interesting.
Yeah.
a lot of people did.
Yeah. Well, we've got a ticket coming up very soon and a vote very soon. It's early voting in a lot of places right now. But to answer your question, I know we kind of got sidetracked.
Yep.
But in politics, none of us in the family had obviously any experience in politics, but I had heard my father-in-law a lot, very upset about what he felt was wasteful. He felt like we weren't focused on America, that we were sending jobs overseas, businesses overseas, that the federal government was bloated and overspending. And he said, this isn't right. This isn't the America that I grew up in and that I think we should, have as a great future for this country. And if you go back to an Oprah interview he did, I believe in the 80s, she asked him, would you ever run for president? And he said, only if things got so bad I felt I had no other choice. And I feel like he thought the country really was on a bad path and he wanted to help bring it back. And so right before his famous golden escalator ride, we actually all sat down as a family. And I'll never forget this because it was one of those moments where looking back, I say, gosh, he really had such good insight into what was about to happen. We all sat down as a family for dinner and he talked us through, I want to do this. This is definitely something that is real. But if I do this the right way, if I do what is needed and I call the people out who need to be called out and expose the things that need to be exposed, they're going to come after us. And it's not just me, it's the whole family. And I think you guys need to really appreciate that. And I need you to understand that and make sure everybody feels good about it. And of course we were like, well, yeah, like how bad could it be? But the foresight he had into what we've seen happen to this man, and I don't think anyone can argue if his name wasn't Donald Trump and he had never run for politics. I mean, you would never have seen any of the crazy things happen to him that have. So that was sort of where we all kind of got our intro into politics. I didn't become part of things really until I flew down to North Carolina in August of 2016 for a rally with my father-in-law to my hometown in Wilmington. And one thing led to another, and he told me that I was going to be responsible for winning him my home state of North Carolina in the 2016 election. And as a person who had no idea what I was doing in politics, I said, I better learn pretty quickly and get to work. And so that's what I did.
I wonder what he learned from the first time he ran.
Hold on, I just want to know, at that dinner, did y'all say, you know what, well, let's put all our dirt on the table right now because you know they're going to be coming at you. You know, press is going to try anything that you guys have ever done. If you guys have stolen a Snicker bar from a store, they're going to come at that. Was that the dinner where you said, well, let's put everything on the table so we know what they're going to be attacking, or that never happened?
I'll be really honest. We really didn't have a lot to put on that table. And if you think that I'm lying, you really believe that anybody in the Trump family with the Trump last name wouldn't have had any and everything exposed by now? No, I mean, I think we naively thought, look, if you have good intentions and you do the right things and you're a good person, then, if Donald Trump became president, I think we all thought after he won in 2016, oh, well, then all the craziness will stop. Everybody will rally behind the person who's president of the United States because we should all want our president to be successful. That is success for America. And obviously, we were very wrong about that.
Well, what is he? Well, two things. Well, I want to go back to one thing first. I wonder what he learned from his 2000 campaign.
2016 campaign?
Well, he ran in 2000 too, officially.
Oh,
yeah.
I haven't actually talked to him about that.
Yeah,
that's a good question. I mean,
I just brought that up because you said that when you talked about the vice president's campaign in 2020, sometimes campaigns aren't successful. Joe Biden ran a bunch of times before he actually won.
He sure did.
Trump ran before he actually won. That's why I brought that up.
Well, I don't know if he officially
2000.
ran.
In 2000, he did.
If he did, it didn't go very far from my memory. I don't know that there was any official announcement as far as I know. But look, I think he felt the right time was 2016. I think he looked at what was going on. And this is a businessman. And I think a lot of what he did that was very beneficial to this country has to do with businesses, with the economy, with jobs. Those were things that were really important to him. And you hear him talk about it now. He recently was talking about tariffs and how he wants to apply tariffs to countries who are, it's really awful to see how so many jobs, factories have gone overseas. We want to see made in the USA on more. And you saw that happening when he was in the White House. You saw more people employed in this country than we've ever had employed in the history of America. You had more money in your pocket. You had inflation at 1.9%. It was a very different feeling when he was in the White House. And I think that's why you're seeing such great support for this man. You don't have to love everything he says. You don't have to love everything he posts on X or Truth Social or whatever. But you do have to be honest that your life probably felt a lot better with Donald Trump in the White House. And I think that that's one of the reasons that he's working so hard because he knows he can do the job. He did it one time before.
Question: why are tariffs considered good business when we know that it's going to cause the cost of typical American household items to go up significantly?
Well, he explained
like a bunch
this,
of economists say that it'll cost the average American $2,600 extra a year.
I think that he explained this the other day when he was sitting down with, I believe it was Bloomberg, that, look, the reality is that it's going to force people to bring their companies back to the United States. And he really believes that.
But it's going to hurt a lot of American citizens in the process of that, because it's not like these companies are going to turn up and
I don't
change
think
over,
so.
come over, back overnight.
Well, let's talk. I mean, if you want to talk about hurting American citizens, the first thing that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris did, their first executive order in the White House, shutting down the Keystone XL pipeline. That was something that gave us our energy independence. It was so bad for America. That drove up gas prices. That caused inflation to continue to go sky high. It enriched our adversaries like Russia and Iran, because now they were supplying oil for the rest of the world instead of the United States. It put us in such a weakened state. So, we want to drill, baby, drill. That's what Donald Trump always says. We have so much liquid gold.
Biden has drilled more than Trump.
Underneath well, why did he shut down the Keystone XL pipeline?
I have no idea, but Biden has drilled
more than
Trump.
Strategic petroleum reserves, which are actually supposed to be used for emergency situations, for war times. The things
but has Biden drilled more than Trump?
I don't believe that's true.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Where?
You can look it up.
It's on Google.
He's drilled more than Trump.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't believe that's true at all. And
it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Donald Trump was obviously a proponent of being energy independent and energy dominant as a country, and we are not right now. And that puts us in a very weakened state. And you would not have seen the issue in the Middle East right now, and you likely wouldn't have seen the issue with Russia and Ukraine had those countries, had Iran not had the funding and the money coming in from the oil, had Russia not had the funding and the money coming in from the oil. It's a terrible thing to see. And so, I think that you can look at a lot of things and second guess them with Donald Trump and say, well, what about this? What about that? Think about how it felt. Think about how much more money you had in your pocket. Think about so many people were finally able to go on a vacation for the first time when he was in the White House. And those are real tangible things. And right now, life is very hard for so many people in this country. I travel all over the place, and I constantly am in airports and restaurants, and I constantly am approached by people who say, I cannot afford not to vote for Donald Trump. And I think they really mean that. And whether you look at our southern border, the influx of people who've come in this country, it's detrimental to so many aspects of our society. It's something that we've spent so much money on here in New York, $12 billion over 3 years. It's costing the city of New York to house illegal immigrants. And so I think whenever push comes to shove and we're looking at this election right now, there's so many people who might not love everything Donald Trump's ever said, but they certainly want to go vote for him because they want their life back. They want more money in their pocket, and they want a safer community, and they want peace agreements.
There's a lot of people that say that,
Hold on real quick. I do want to just note that inflation is down, though.
It's coming down.
It's like the 2.5%.
It's coming
just
down,
that the
but
prices
it's not
are still
down.
So elevated.
But wage growth has not kept up with the rise in inflation, and it's causing people to really hurt around this country. They really can't make their basic ends meet right now.
I mean, inflations are down, but the prices are up. I mean, whose fault is that? That's more so the corporations than it is government.
Prices are, say that again?
Inflation is down, but the prices are up.
Inflation is not down nearly enough. You
2.5%.
You can bring inflation down significantly, and I think if we had an energy independent country, it would really help.
Is that 2.5%?
Yeah.
I was going to ask, a lot of people feel that Trump is racist. And what do you say to that? In 73, of course, it was when he got sued for not renting to African Americans. And 89, when he took out the ad in the paper. And even saying Obama wasn't born here and show his birth certificate. And there's numerous things. So what do you say to that?
Well, I think that's ridiculous. I've known this man for 16 years. And, you can go to each of those incidents and, there was never any proof of anything with the houses that you're talking about.
He settled out for that, though, right?
Yeah, they settled that. And there was no admission of anything there. Central Park 5. There were so many people. You had a Governor Democrat, DA who prosecuted the guys, and they admitted to it. There were a lot of people in New York.
They were
at that time.
exonerated and freed, and there was never an apology. Never sorry, never a my bad.
However, I will say that you have to look at somebody and what they actually have done, and Donald Trump really was very beneficial to the Black community when he was in the White House. I will say I've never seen this man say a racist thing. I think the attacks are fairly. Why is that funny, Charlamagne?
I'm just like, It's hysterical. But I mean,
But no, Charlamagne,
because people act like
listen.
there's no such thing as Google, or we don't have TV, we don't
Well,
have
what is
radio.
it that you think that he said?
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
This morning, a bitter backlash after President Trump referred to Haiti and African nations as S-hole countries during a meeting on immigration Thursday.
This remark by the President of the United States smacks of blatant racism.
Here's what I'll say. You know, this is a man who, as I said in the beginning, was beloved by so many people in this country. And he was friends with everybody. You go
A lot
back
of
to
celebrities.
Jesse Jackson, by the way.
Please
his
don't, please
Rainbow
don't do that. He
Coalition.
had black friends. That's not going to work.
No. He let them stay rent free in one of his buildings. The Rainbow Coalition, because he felt like at the time that was a very important thing. You can go pick apart somebody all you want. It is a traditional talking point to attack Republicans, to call them racist. But when you look at the things that he wants for this country, he wants every person to be successful. He wants Black Americans to be successful, Hispanic Americans to be successful, women to be successful. And he worked that way when he was in the White House. And whether you want to talk about actually funding in perpetuity historically Black colleges and universities, whether you want to talk about the First Step Act that allowed 30,000 nonviolent felons to be released from prison, who the 1994 crime bill actually put in prison, these are things that really have, I feel like, spoken to a lot of people. But more so than anything, the economy right now is such that I don't care who you are. It is hurting you, and it is something that he wants to fix. He wants every American to have their shot at the American dream. And, you know, I hate that that is the constant knee-jerk is Donald Trump is a racist, Donald Trump is a racist. I can tell you he wants every person to be successful. He'll work for every American equally. He did that the first term when he was president, and he'll do it again.
How do you ask Mexicans and Muslims to ignore a lot of the rhetoric, Haitians to ignore a lot of the rhetoric that he said about them that is dangerous, that has villainized them, that has demonized them?
Well, I would say anyone who's coming to this country illegally, he's very against, and every American should be very against. If you're an American citizen, Donald Trump doesn't care your religion. He doesn't care what you look like. He will work for you, and he wants to make this country safe for you. We should all want a secure southern border. A lot of the comments get misconstrued that he says about people coming here illegally. They're breaking our federal law to come here illegally. And that should be upsetting to everyone.
But when you make these broad generalizations, you do hurt the Haitian Americans that are here, the Mexican Americans that are here. They all get labeled and villainized and demonized.
Yeah, but you know what? I think people are finally seeing through that. It's very easy to clip up something like that and say, like, oh, let's push this out here. When he's referencing these things, he's talking about people who are illegally in our country. He doesn't want us to have 350 people on the terror watch list here. There's a guy who was arrested the other day, an ISIS member who was arrested the other day, who had planned a November 5th election day attack on American citizens. ISIS was eradicated under Donald Trump. We did not even talk about it anymore. He got into the White House and he talked to his top military brass and he said, okay, you guys tell me, how long is it going to take to deal with ISIS? Because ISIS was a big threat. People were constantly talking about it, worried about terror attacks. And they said, sir, it's going to take us a couple years maybe. You know, we have to call the White House every time we want to have some big operation. And he said, how about this? You guys just go do whatever it is you need to do. You don't need to call me. You guys are the experts. I'm not a military expert. You take care of it, and let's see what happens. 4 weeks, ISIS was gone. The fact that we're talking about ISIS back in the here in the United States of America, an ISIS member, should terrify everybody. The open border has been a disaster. So yeah, he's upset about it. And yes, he says things about people coming here illegally, and rightly so. And you and I, as American citizens, should be the ones absolutely infuriated that this has been allowed to happen.
I agree with you. The border is a disaster. I feel like the border is a bipartisan issue, though, because the border has been terrible under multiple administrations.
Well, we had the lowest border crossings when Donald Trump was in the White House that we've ever had.
Yes, but I still feel like it's going to take some bipartisan legislation, to actually fix things at the border. You can't do executive orders. You can't do that. So how come they can't come to terms on that? And why did Donald Trump shoot down what they said was one of the most comprehensive bipartisan border bills that
if you actually read what was in there, there was like $60 billion for Ukraine. There were so many issues with that. It would allow 1.8 million illegal immigrants into our country a year. I mean, it was nonsense, honestly, Charlamagne. And we should all want a secure southern border. That's why Donald Trump built over 500 miles of border wall when he was in office. And, I went down to the border wall and I saw it with my own eyes. I went down to Yuma, Arizona about a month ago. And to talk to the people in those communities, look, they say now every state is a border state because of this. The people who live in Yuma, Arizona are being so negatively impacted. If you're a pregnant woman in Yuma, Arizona, they kind of say, you may not want to plan to have a baby in our hospitals here because they're so overrun taking care of people who cross the border. It's dangerous. They say a third of women are sexually assaulted. The people there told me it's probably closer to 50% who come up over the southern border. So it's terrible for them. But because of them having to take care of all the illegal migrants coming over, you can't even be assured you're going to have a place to deliver a baby in Yuma, Arizona. They say you're going to have to drive either 2 hours to San Diego or 3 hours north to Phoenix. And so having gone and seen it with my own eyes, I'll tell you the most infuriating part to me. You have this border wall that Donald Trump built, and then laying down on the ground where you have a wide open section are pieces of the border wall that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, because they campaigned and said, we will not build another foot of Donald Trump's border wall, it's laying on the ground. And there are people who come right through there. They could stand it up right now if they wanted to, but they won't do it. That is very frustrating, I think, to see right now that we paid for that. It's right there ready to go. And if they're not leaving it on the ground, then they're selling it for, pennies on the dollar.
If the bipartisan border bill was so bad, like you say, how come so many Republicans were for it until Donald Trump intervened to say no?
I don't think Donald Trump intervened at all. He's not in elected office right now. And
he literally told them not to do it.
I don't think that's true. But I also, no. Well, ask Donald Trump yourself. He will tell you.
That's a good question. I wonder for you, how tough is it having the last name Trump? Because you are the co-chair of the RNC.
Mm-hmm.
You do have the last name Trump. We know you're the daughter-in-law. How hard is it for you to have to always answer questions about Donald Trump?
Well, nothing prepares you for this. I can tell you, growing up where I did, I would have never expected to have the last name Trump. I certainly would have never expected to be involved in all of this. And yeah, sometimes it's challenging, but I'll tell you, I really believe when history looks back on this man, this is a man who never needed this job. You have to think back, like we were talking about before, Donald Trump was beloved by so many. He really got involved in politics because he felt he could make a positive difference. Mm-hmm. And most people would have had that first term in office and seen how much they fought against him and said, you know what, I'm not going to do this again. But he decided to come back and do it again. They indicted him, not once but 4 times, mugshot, obviously 2 assassination attempts. And this is a man who continues fighting for this country. And I will tell you, I'm incredibly proud to be his daughter-in-law. I'm incredibly proud to have the last name Trump. Does it come with its challenges because there is a lot of negative information out there about Donald Trump? Absolutely. But I can't think of anything better that I could be doing right now than trying to fight for the future of this country. And I really believe that when people think about their life with Donald Trump in office and their life right now, they will always say, my life was better with him in office. And we should all want a great country. And that's what I want. I want it for my kids. I want it for everybody's kids and grandkids. And it's not just about right now, it's about the future of America.
You keep saying he had a lot of celebrity friends and they turned on him.
He sure did.
How does he feel about that? Because, in the 90s, the early 2000s, everybody was hanging with Donald Trump. They were mentioning him in songs and going to his parties and all these events. But they've all have turned. How does he feel about that? Do you know?
I don't think he cares at all. I think he knows what he's doing is so important right now. And to kind of finish my point, I think when history looks back on this man, he will truly go down as one of the greatest presidents this country's ever had. He put so much on the line. Look, he's lost zeros off the back of his net worth. He's the only president to donate his salary every quarter. He came out of the White House with less money than he went in. And he does it because he loves this country. And he really does want to see us successful. We are the superpower of the world. That is such a huge deal. But things are going in the wrong way in a lot of different aspects. And I think one of the scariest things to him right now is nuclear war. He talks about it all the time, that it is a real possibility right now. You have Russia, you have Iran, you have a lot of bad actors out there who are chomping at the bit. They saw the way we exited from Afghanistan. They see the weakness right now in this White House. And, you want a strong president because you want peace through strength. And that's what we had. He was the only president in 82 years not to have a new war under his leadership.
Now
that back.
What you just said just now about the nuclear war is something I agree with. I feel like there is too much casual conversation about nuclear war from a lot of different world leaders, and I don't think we're discussing it enough.
Yeah.
That I agree with you.
It's terrifying. And there are a lot of people out there right now who aren't even thinking about this. But imagine the United States gets into World War III, and we indeed would be sucked right into it. The people, our young men and women in this country are going to be sent overseas, and it is going to be horrific. And on top of that, it won't be like any war we have ever seen ever in the history of the world, because nuclear is absolutely terrifying. It would destroy the world.
It's going to last an hour.
Yeah.
It would be gone.
Yeah. No, it's very scary. And, people gave him you remember before when he was running in 2016, they were like, we can't give this guy the nuclear codes.
I agree with that, though. Even now to this point.
He was the only person, Charlamagne, not to get us into a new war. He was the one who got us the Abraham Accords, peace agreements that people said were impossible in the Middle East. So why are you concerned about Donald Trump with the nuclear codes?
Did you see what he did on January 6th?
What did he do?
He got a little bit upset.
What did he do on January 6th?
He got a little bit upset and used his words.
What words did he say, though?
The words that you said earlier.
Peacefully and patriotically make your voices
And
heard.
then what happened after that?
So how were his words actually contributing to that?
Because I think that for me, him being able to just push a button, hypothetically speaking, it's a little bit scary, because we've seen he gets a little bit erratic when he wants to.
Well, nothing happened for 4 years when he was in the White House. And in fact, we had a peaceful world. We had a stable world. We had world leaders who were coming to the table to talk about issues like Kim Jong-un of North Korea, by the way. Obama, when he left the White House, told my father-in-law, he said, the biggest problem you're going to have is North Korea. It is going to be your biggest challenge. It's going to be the hardest thing you're going to have to deal with. And so Donald Trump said, all right, I'm going to try to see what we can do here, because we want to have a denuclearized Korean Peninsula. We do not want North Korea with a nuclear weapon. That is detrimental. I mean, talk about nuclear war. Can you imagine? Talk about a loose cannon, Kim Jong-un, really? And so he started trying to make contact with him, and he was the first president to walk across the DMZ and shake hands with the leader of North Korea to have conversations about getting rid of a possible nuclear weapon with North Korea. That is great for the world. The world leaders did not even try it with Donald Trump because they knew he meant business. When he drew a line in the sand, he meant it. And the proof is in the pudding. So, you can say, oh, well, we're worried about this. You had 4 years. You had no new wars. You had peace agreements instead of wars breaking out in the Middle East. Look at it right now. It is a hornet's nest, and it is very scary, the trajectory from here to what could happen if you don't have the right leadership in the White
But it
House.
wasn't a peaceful transfer of power, and he did lead an insurrection in this country. And I know you keep saying the thing about the peace and patriotic part, but he also
offered National Guard troops to Nancy Pelosi. She didn't want to take it. Look, here's what I can
he
tell you.
also said we fight like hell.
And we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
And if you don't fight like hell,
Okay, Charlamagne,
you're not going to have a country anymore.
Every politician, when you go out on the stump,
even after he got shot at, which
about-
was terrible, first thing he did when he stood up was say, fight, 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 fight who?
he wants to keep fighting for this country. And this is my father-in-law. I know things get really heated when it comes to Donald Trump. People have very strong.
Oh, not me. I have no emotion with it.
People have very strong feelings about this man, but gosh, guys, I can tell you, he is not doing this for any other reason than that he knows he can do the job necessary.
Our narcissism.
He wants to save this country.
I always say there's two reasons people run for office. They're either extreme narcissists or they are actual civil servants.
Well, imagine having a great life. Imagine giving it all up. Imagine knowing that the very people who were applauding you, who invited you to all the fancy events, who were some of your best friends, knowing, we just talked about this, they're going to turn their back on you. Imagine going through it one time and then saying, you know what, I got to come back and do it again because my work is not done here and I really believe I can do great things for this country.
Or you've gotten indicted so many times, that's your way to stay out of prison.
And you believe those were all legitimate.
I don't know if they're legitimate or not, but he had the charges. I mean, that's up for the courts to decide.
Is
but
it?
He did get convicted of 34 of them. I mean, that's for the courts to decide. I don't, it's not my place to say
we
what's
all
legitimate
know that
or not.
if his name was not Donald Trump, none of that would have ever seen the light of day. And I believe all of those are going to be overturned.
Yeah,
because
I mean, if he wins, he's going to
overturn him.
No, not because of that. You've already seen movement in that. The appellate courts have already looked at some of the things, like the Letitia James case. All of it. It's outrageous. It's all outrageous, and it is actually frightening because we should want good people with great ideas, great business leaders, great people in whatever section of the economy they're in, whatever their background. We want good, smart people to run for these offices. And what has happened with Donald Trump, I think, is so sad because it really deters good people from running for office. And we really need good people. We should really want them. Donald Trump is the only person who I believe they know in Washington, D.C., they can't control. And that's a very scary prospect to them. Because
But is he controlled by Russia, though?
Are you kidding me?
I'm just asking. I'm asking a question. Is he controlled
Charlamagne.
Is he controlled by Putin?
Are you really? We couldn't have colluded
look
with
like that, man.
we couldn't have colluded with Iowa in 2016, let alone Russia, okay? And by the way, you want to know who did collude with Russia? It was Hillary Clinton and the DNC. And that was proven. They had the Steele dossier. They paid money to get Oppo research and make up stuff about Donald Trump. And guess what happened to them for trying to interfere in an election? You want to talk about the 34 felony counts via Alvin Bragg in downtown Manhattan? That was all about election interference. Hillary Clinton and the DNC admitted to doing this, and they got charged $83,000. Does that seem fair to anybody here? That's outrageous, and it's ridiculous, and every single person knows it. So does Donald Trump have anything to do with Russia? No, you know what he wants to do with Russia? He wants to get along with Russia so that we don't have wars in Europe right now. That's what he would like to see happen.
Now, his life has been threatened twice in a possibility, right? Because the other ones, they say whatever. So we'll say 3 times. Do you think it was because of his rhetoric, or do you think it's because of the Democrats' rhetoric? Why do you think his life keeps getting threatened like the way that it is? We've never seen this ever in life, and it seems like his life should be protected a lot better than that, especially with Secret Service.
Well,
so what is your thoughts on that?
That's very nice. I agree with you. I think that when Donald Trump came down that escalator, he was different. He came right out of the gate and started saying things that upset some people, but a lot of Americans resonated with that, and they said, wait a minute, this guy kind of talks like I talk. And I appreciate some of the things he's saying.
He did kill the language of politics. I agree with that.
Yeah, he's changed the landscape of politics. And whether you like Donald Trump or you don't, you probably are more invested in politics now than you ever could have imagined because of him. I do think that whenever you have people out there who constantly talk about, we need to take this guy out, he's a threat to democracy, he's this, that, and the other, and you demonize someone so much over and over and over.
Well, his running mate called him Hitler.
Again.
J.D. Vance said he's Hitler.
And he's admitted that obviously he was wrong. He was misled. Here's the thing.
That rhetoric would get you killed, though.
I can imagine if I got my information from the wrong news outlets, that I would probably hate Donald Trump too. But I actually know him. And I'm his daughter-in-law, and I'm part of this family, and I know what he goes through on a daily basis, and I know what he wants to do for this country. The reason why do I think, people have tried to assassinate him? Mm-hmm. I can only assume it's because they don't want him to become president. And I can take that a lot of different ways. I can tell you that, being part of this family and seeing what this man has gone through, I give him so much credit. Most people, you get one assassination attempt, you're probably out. Donald Trump is still there, going strong, and he said nothing will ever stop him.
You never wanted, after that first attempt, just removing the, like the business or the work of the job. As his daughter-in-law, who you have children, that's their granddad, you never wanted him to just not continue.
Well, it's not my decision. It's his decision. I mean, do I think about it? Yeah. My kids were actually watching that. We had that on at our house whenever.
What did they say?
Well, I tried to kind of distract them from it, change the channel where they were. But they want to know, why would somebody try to hurt grandpa? What happened? Why did somebody do that? And that's a tough one. When your 5-year-old asks you why somebody wants to hurt grandpa, that's a tough one. And, one day they'll be old enough to understand that. But, we all worry about him all the time.
When you hear Trump say things like he wants to terminate the Constitution, to overthrow the results of an election, what do you think about it?
When did Donald Trump say that?
Oh, my God. He said it on Truth Social.
It's the oath of office every president takes. Former President Trump is now taking aim at this founding document. A post from Trump suggesting the possible termination of parts of the Constitution and a redo of the 2020 election.
That's not what he said. Donald Trump is a strong supporter of the United States Constitution, and he wants free, fair, and transparent elections, and he wants every American, no matter how you vote,
he said it.
to have your opportunity to vote, and only legal votes counted.
What did you think when he said he had every right to interfere in the 2020 election?
Whoever heard you get indicted for interfering with a presidential election where you have every right to do it?
I think whenever you are the commander in chief and you're the leader of this country, you should have every American feeling very comfortable that their vote mattered and their vote counted. And the problem with 2020 is that was such a crazy election. You had COVID, you had people boarding up windows, places. You had a lot of people with a lot of questions, and those questions never got answered. And instead of actually getting to a place where we could answer those, everybody's like, well, we just got to move on. And so it is his duty, I think, to make sure that everybody feels like their vote was counted. And that's what he was trying to accomplish.
Yeah, but if you're getting asked about, your indictment for interfering with the presidential election, your response shouldn't be, I had every right to do that.
Your indictment meaning Alvin Bragg?
No, he got indicted for interfering with the election. So when you're asked about that by NBC, I think it was NBC News. I forgot who it was. He was doing an interview with. Oh, it was with Fox News. When you're asked that question, I don't think your response should be, I had every right to do it.
Well, that was his response, but I tell you what he was trying to do is trying to make sure everybody had their vote counted, for sure.
And I understand why you support, your father-in-law. That's your father-in-law. You're the co-chair of the RNC. But his policies, especially towards women, they absolutely take away rights from women. What do you think about that?
How's that?
What do you mean?
Which rights?
The Roe v. Wade being overturned, women's reproductive rights.
Because for 54 years, they were trying to get Roe v. Wade terminated, and I did it. And I'm proud to have done it.
Like, what are we talking
So
about?
here's the thing that's been very interesting to me about this entire election. It's obviously abortion has become really the number one issue of the Democrats, I think. And I think it's because they know that a lot of what they've done to this country, people are smart enough to see. Like, it's been bad. People are hurting, like we said earlier. We've already established that. You got wars, you got an open border, you got people with less money in their pocket, can't make ends meet. So what do? You say, all right, we got to go hard on abortion. What happened when the Supreme Court said we're going to get rid of Roe v. Wade is that the most democratic of things happened, which is that this went back to the states so that we, the people, actually have the opportunity in our respective states to vote on it. Donald Trump has said he will not sign a federal abortion ban. This should be out of the hands of the federal government. And actually, it's a great thing so that here in New York, there might be a vote that is very different than what they might have in Alabama or California or Nevada. It's all up to us, we the people in our respective states. And so I think the talking point that Donald Trump is somehow threatening this is outrageous. He said, I want nothing to do with it.
But he takes credit for it. He said, I put the 3 Supreme Court judges on the stand that actually overturned Roe v. Wade.
And you know what? In some places, Charlamagne, it actually means that things are going to be more liberal, and they're gonna have a lot longer opportunity for people to have abortions. Some places it might be less, but you know what? That is up to the people of the states. And Donald Trump, I think, has been very clear that it should never have been in the hands of the federal government. It should have never been in the hands of the United States Supreme Court to decide. It should be up to the people.
Well, he's moonwalking now. He said some abortion laws are too tough and need to be redone. And he said in his Fox News town hall this past Wednesday that they're going to be redone. Well, he said they're too tough.
Well, I think that's up to the states, and the states have to vote on it. But he said, I want nothing to do with it. And by the way, while we're on the topic, IVF, something that they've also lied about and said Donald Trump does not want IVF. He is 100% in favor of IVF. He wants more babies, not fewer. And it's sad because that talking point has really taken over things, and people are, convinced of, Donald Trump, as you're saying, is a threat to women's rights. He's not at all. He wants you to decide in your state how you want things to look, and he wants to take his hands off of it.
I mean, if you're taking credit for the Supreme Court justices that overturned Roe v. Wade.
But isn't that good so that we can just send it back and we can all vote on it?
No, I don't think.
No,
I think
you'd rather you want more federal government involved in everything?
I think anytime you take away people's power of choice, that's not good on any level.
Well, it's up to us to decide. So everybody get out and vote.
Donald Trump always talks about fake news, right? Mm-hmm. And recently, me and my co-host over here was talking about a commercial we saw, and they chopped up the commercial and put it out, and it was fake news, and it was showing that we were going against Kamala Harris and supporting Donald Trump.
Oh, you guys here.
Yes. Did you see the commercial?
I know what you're talking about.
It's been all over TV ads. So what do you say about something like that that's fake news that we see so much that was literally cut up and spliced and made look that was totally not what it was?
Well, I haven't seen that one. I know what you're talking. I know what you're referencing.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen that one, so I can't really opine on that. But You're saying that not everybody does that?
That was fake news. I'm just asking. It's just weird to throw it out there and talk about fake news, but that was totally fake, and it just seemed totally falsified.
Well, I would like to, if you want to pull it up, I'll take a look at it. But
That's all right.
I haven't seen that one.
Do you listen to the show?
I do sometimes.
So you know Charlamagne has probably given Donald Trump donkey today the most donkey out of everybody.
Well,
I'm fair and balanced though.
I
give everybody
it's an accolade. So thank you,
I'm
Charlamagne.
fair and balanced. I give all elected officials donkey of the day.
Yeah.
He just gets it a little more.
Well, I like that you say that you're independent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you're not affiliated with any party.
Nope.
That's cool. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
You go based on policy, and I think there are a lot of people out there who feel that way right now. I mean, you've seen a mass exodus of voters from the Democrat Party. You have actually more people in America right now.
I think that's a little overstated, though.
No, there are more people in America in polling right now who consider themselves to be Republicans than Democrats. But I think that we all know that this election and all elections come down to independent voters. So we're working hard for your vote, Charlamagne.
You're not getting it. I'm voting for Kamala Harris.
I don't know. How much longer do we have? How much longer do we have?
Like, Trump wants to jail journalists. I'm a radio personality.
We wouldn't even have jobs, would we?
That's what they said, that he wants to break up media monopolies.
No. Forget the media monopolies. He said out of his mouth. He said it numerous times. He was sitting with Ben Shapiro the other day, and he was like, watch what I do. I think it was with the New York Times. He said, watch what I do to them. He said he wants to take CBS News license. He literally said he wants to jail journalists who oppose him.
And you believe that? Did he jail journalists whenever he was in the White House?
So why are you saying? My thing is this: why say things that he doesn't believe if he doesn't want us to believe?
Well, I would have to actually hear him say that.
Take the writer and or the publisher of the paper, and you say, who is the leaker? And they say, we're not going to tell you. They say, it's okay, you're going to jail.
You may have heard of something called sarcasm, and Donald Trump operates in that quite a bit. And sometimes the things that he says, I think, get misconstrued. He's being sarcastic about things and joking about a lot of things, and then people say, "Wait a minute, he says this, that, and the other." But
he's running for president.
But
I gotta believe the words that come out of your mouth. And by the way,
Donald Trump is he hates the term politician. He still does not want to consider himself a politician, albeit he's been president obviously for 4 years. So
there are so many. Just real quick, I was going to pull up the clip of him that Charlamagne was talking about. So I typed in Donald Trump threatens to jail journalists, and it's like Donald Trump threatens to jail political opponents. Donald Trump threatens to jail election officials. Not like
he definitely threatened to jail political opponents.
It's just so many things just thrown out there.
When he was in the White House, and there was a lot of talk when he was running against Hillary Clinton about lock her up. Did he ever do that? He did not. You know why? Because he actually believes that that's a really horrible thing to do. And there's no one who's been persecuted more than this man. There's no one who's been attacked more because of politics than this man. And talk about weaponizing, the judicial system against somebody. That's Donald Trump, and he hates to see that. He hates the way that that's happened. I think it's awful. I think it's bad for this country, and so he wants to fight for equality in terms of justice. And you should never, ever be attacking and going after your political opponents using the weaponization of our justice system. It's awful.
What would you like to see Trump do better?
Do better? I just wish people knew the side of him that I know more, to be honest. I wish that he would allow us to showcase the Donald Trump that I get to see behind the scenes with my kids, with my family. He's one of the funniest people I have ever met. I mean, amazing. But I think the reason he doesn't do that, and the reason that he sort of shies away from that, is because he understands that when you are the leader of the free world, you have to operate from a position of power. And you want to maybe make people a little bit nervous out there, the adversaries and the allies. Because you think about when he was in office and in the White House, there was so much that was accomplished on the world stage for the United States. And I think it was very good that we had a strong leader in the White House. And so I actually think the reason he never does that is because he doesn't want to show that side of him. He likes to operate from this position of power. So if it were up to me, I would show that side of him all day, because I think you guys might actually
we see the other side, because, looking out on the outside, he looks mean, right?
Yeah.
Grab her by the pussy, and mentally disabled and mentally impaired and a very dumb person.
Okay.
Now, because you said he was joking. And that's why I was asking, because you said he's just joking when he says things like that.
Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Kamala was born that way.
Well, I think that it would be hard to not look at what's happened in this country and imagine that somebody was truly able to execute things well and is a very smart, very bright person. If your job, and I know she doesn't want this label as borders are, But your job was to deal with the southern border. And we have had.
Well, actually, her job was to get to the root of the issues at
So
the
how did
southern
she
border.
do
She's
that?
not the head.
And why did they repeal all of the things that Donald Trump had put in place to make sure that we did not have an influx of people coming into this country? We've had 11 million plus people illegally come into this country. Again, I just talked about 350 people on the terror watch list. You have 15,000 people who are sexual assaulters. You have had 13,000 murderers come in here. It's horrible. It's horrible for this country. So some of the things you have to ask yourself, I don't know, how smart can a person be if this is the way that they are operating? And I think that's his whole point. We want somebody who's going to do the job and do it well. And the proof is in the pudding. You had Donald Trump for 4 years. You saw how he did the job. You saw how your life was. Take a look around right now. Doesn't feel very good for many people.
What do you there was a video that went viral of you and Eric when you guys were on the boat and the parade and the neo-Nazi boat pulled up and joined the parade.
Oh my God, absolutely disgusting. I can tell you there was no one more upset about that boat and those people who clearly were not out there to be part of that parade. They were there to cause disruption and to try to insinuate that in some way that there's anyone out there who would agree with that. Everyone was disgusted. And actually, I think they had the cops called on them multiple times and asked to remove them from that boat parade. There's nobody who gets more upset about that than Trump supporters, because that is, it's so disgusting and so disgraceful. And obviously, everyone was very upset about that.
Oh, good. A day ago, Trump's campaign said that those flying swastika flags were liberal activists. So, like, why is it that I think when things like this happen, like, you guys don't come out right away and say what you just said? You kind of let things go, and it made a lot of people upset that they didn't hear from you guys sooner.
You mean
denouncing
the day
it.
of?
Like, just denouncing it. Like, you came out right away and just denounced it and separated yourself from it. Why doesn't that happen?
Well, as soon as anyone's asked about it, I think we do. I'm not going to draw attention to these people.
It was super viral, though. And I know you know online because you just did the Taylor Swift thing.
But I'm not going to be the person to draw any attention to these people, right? They're out there to get attention. And if someone is asked about it, then obviously we're going to denounce it immediately. And it's disgraceful. But see, it's frustrating that, so do you think that, like, we really agree with that on any level, and that there's some, like, room we're trying to give for these people? Because we're not. And Donald Trump was the first to say it. And while we're talking about things with Donald Trump.
Your father-in-law does take a long time to denounce white supremicists.
And he's dismissing it by calling them
David
liberal
Duke,
activists.
3 days after white supremacists marched in the streets, the president is now back to square one, again blaming all sides.
You had a group on one side that was bad, and you had a group on the other side that was also very violent. I've condemned neo-Nazis. I've condemned many different groups, but not all of those people were neo-Nazis, believe me. Not all of those people were white supremacists. And you had some very bad people in that group, but you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Absolutely not. Let me tell you, the one thing that I think is very frustrating is this talking point with Donald Trump. And it gets perpetuated because it took 7 years for Snopes to come out with the Charlottesville stuff and say, actually what Donald Trump said, his entire comment that was cut short and the only thing people hear, he said there were very fine people on both sides, except the neo-Nazis and white supremacists who should be condemned totally. But you don't hear that. And so for 7 years, people were led to believe that Donald Trump somehow supported neo-Nazis and white supremacists. It's outrageous.
I remember seeing that live.
It.
I don't remember him saying that part.
Well, you can look it up right now, and I promise you it is there. You know why you don't remember? Because unfortunately, that clip has been played time and time and time again to try to convince people. You just asked me, people say Donald Trump's racist. To try to convince people that he's racist. Of course he's not. Of course he's going to condemn neo-Nazis and white supremacists.
You think we politicize? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and of course, by the way, the Nazi flags, are you kidding me? Disgusting. And we never want anybody, those people should never have been allowed.
So what's that hanging out your pocket?
What's hanging out of my pocket?
I'm about to say, not that cute.
I was like, all I got in there's chapstick. I don't know what's in my pocket.
But yeah, I think we do politicize too many issues as opposed to getting to real solutions. Like, even when, you know, we say things like, the VP was the borders are. We know that's not true. We know that there's
Charlamagne, she was in charge of dealing
no,
with the southern
Secretary
border.
of Homeland Security is in charge of the border. We know that.
Well, but she was. I'm sorry. You go back and all the interviews with her. It was in March of 2021. She was given this task. That's all anyone's talking about. How are you going to deal with the border? How are you going to deal with the border? And you're right. She says root causes. But we've had 11 million plus people.
But that's
come in
really
this
her job.
country.
She was there to evaluate the factors that cause people to leave their home countries in the first place. The person that manages the border was the Secretary of Homeland Security. We know that though. But like we do this just to politicize the issue, and that's why things don't ever get done. That's my problem with both parties.
Yeah, I hear you. I hate politicizing all of this stuff. I think if we would be so much better served talking about the things that impact people's lives. And when you're talking about what's impacting people's lives right now, one of those things, the number two thing that people are voting on right now, is the border and illegal immigration. Their number one priority right now is the economy. And so I think I've said it a bunch of times in here. I think you just got to compare the two.
Which is why Trump shouldn't be spending $65 million on anti-trans ads, because that's not even the top issue that people are talking about.
Well, he didn't do that. That was one of the super PACs.
The PACs? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we appreciate you for joining us.
Well, thank you guys. I'm glad to be here.
Spirited discussion.
Yeah.
The co-chair of the Republican National Committee. Thank you so much for joining us.
You got it.
It's Lara Trump.
And it's interesting to me how I do watch y'all, and I do see the conversations that y'all are willing to have.
Yeah.
And I think that there's something to there is something to that. Yes.
I'm here.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you. We appreciate it.
It's Lara Trump. It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning.
Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.